It was the first crisp morning East Texas had seen as the brutal summer was finally coming to an end. The library was alive, with staff bustling through the back door loading dock. Inside, all were clocking in and preparing for the day ahead. Smells of coffee and books permeated throughout the building, and the promise of fall coming sooner rather than later. It would have been preferred by all that the building remained closed that day. Instead, each grabbing a book for themselves and nestling under a tree to take the changing of the season. Nonetheless, opening procedures continued like clockwork. One of the daily tasks usually begrudgingly done was sorting through the overnight book donations left by patrons on the loading dock. Book donations are one of the most essential streams of revenue for a library, but rarely enjoyable to work with. Old, no longer needed or loved books, often put in dusty, smelly boxes for staff to determine if they are trash or treasure. Sometimes the latest Stephen King or Dean Koontz lay barely used inside. However, most of the time, the books are moldy, wet, and sometimes even covered in bugs. Sorting through these questionable books was definitely a job for the outdoors. However, on this very cool and earthy, smelly morning, two staff volunteered right away at the chance to be outside, and once going to the loading dock, the two staff members were slightly disappointed to see only 2 boxes of donations set right up against the sepia-colored brick building. So few books meant so little time to enjoy the cool breeze against their cheeks. Kneeling next to the boxes, staff carefully inspected. Surprisingly, despite the age of the books inside the boxes, all seemed to be bug and mold free. Their next step was to bring them inside to Ramona, who would look up the value for each and add them to the carts of books prepared for the next book sale. Ramona had just finished opening the front doors and getting a handful of eager patrons ready to start their day in the computer lab. Upon returning to her spot at the front help desk, she noticed the 20 or so books stacked neatly with a note asking to assess their value for the book sale. Ramona loved researching the value of books. As a pseudo-antiques roadshow enthusiast, she would imagine one day finding a first edition Jane Austen book or even Edgar Allan Poe, something donated by someone sorting through an estate and did not know the enormous value the book possessed. Book possessed. Newspaper clippings of libraries finding first editions surrounded her cubicle in the staff area. If one of these treasures were to be found, Ramona would then pass along that book to the library manager so it could be sold for thousands of dollars. This, of course, had never happened. But her imagination ran wild with the different types of scenarios of priceless literature that could be waiting to be discovered and appreciated once again. What was typically found instead was more along the lines of the guidebook to Microsoft Windows 98 or DOS for Dummies, items that were rarely of value and would likely be added to the free cart at the very end of the book sale. Nevertheless, Ramona sat down and, one by one, went through each book in between assisting patrons checking out at the front desk. Finally, when the bottom of the stack was reached, Ramona held in her hands a very peculiar book. She noticed right away that the maroon binding was very indicative of an antique book. However, the cover had no author or title. She opened the first few pages to find the publication information, but they were blank. Instead, a few pages in, she noticed a script that did not appear to be in English. Next, she opened Google Translator to see if she could add some of the script and have Google spit back at least which language it was in. An error message came back instead, and Ramona thought, how odd. It's not often the library got donations that were not in one of the Romance languages. She set the book aside when a patron with 2 children needed help getting library cards, and she was determined that she would figure out the origin later in the day. That night, when Ramona got back to her 1-bedroom studio apartment just a couple of blocks from the library downtown, she continued to research the book from the first 2 pages she photocopied right before closing and locking up the building for the night. She continued to type line after line of text in Google and literature databases from her living room, but each time, no results found would appear. How in the world of Google, with 15 million search results, could nothing about this book be found? She said. Immediately after, Ramona jerked her head to the loud crashing noise coming from her kitchen. Walking into the galley, she noticed her dishes lying on the floor. She was waiting to wash them before bed and stack them neatly next to the sink, but instead broken porcelain and silver lay scattered throughout the floor. Her heart beating fast, she saw her tabby cat, Mittens, sitting on the corner with a smirk, slightly lurking back at Ramona. "Thanks a lot, Mittens. You certainly got my blood pumping for the night," Ramona said with her hands on her hips, and the cat stalked onto her cat condo in the living room without a care in the world, as Ramona picked up the shards. "That's enough mystery for one night," she thought. Returning to the living room and closing her laptop for the night, Ramona cozied on her couch and fell asleep to a PBS documentary playing. The next morning, Ramona woke up and readied for work again, putting on her favorite brown cardigan to celebrate the changing of the foliage, and wrapping her long brown hair in a bun, she hurried back to the library. She felt an eagerness, a pull to get back to the book, determined that somewhere in there would be a clue as to what and where it was from. Ramona kept the book beside her the entire day as she helped patron after patron, each person testing her patience as her research continuously needed interrupting. Very much unlike Ramona, she snapped at one patron who wanted to know where the bathroom was. "Right there," she said aggressively. One of Ramona's co-workers, Nick, noticed this short-temperedness right away. Towards the end of the day, and when things quieted, he tried approaching her, and Ramona was still hunched over the book, flipping page after page, trying to see if she could recognize a word, a symbol, or perhaps a picture that could infer the meaning to nothing. Nick quietly disrupted. "Hey, how's it going?" Ramona jerked her head towards him, noticing it was just Nick, and she confessed, "I can't find anything about this book that was donated yesterday, and it's driving me crazy." Nick worked with Ramona for several years and always knew her to be passionate and devoted to the library. It was actually Ramona who trained Nick when he first started at the library as a library assistant. He remembered it being quite intimidating at first, being around 25 people that knew so much about reading, but Ramona instantly helped him feel welcomed. Before today, Nick had never, not even once, seen Ramona get short with a patron. He knew something was wrong. Let me see if I can find anything in the book," Nick said, eager to help. "No! I don't want anyone to touch it." Taken aback, Nick thought, what a weird thing to say. "It's just a donation. Why get so consumed over something we might sell for $1? He retreated and said, "Sure thing, Ramona. If you change your mind, I would be happy to help." "I got it." At the conclusion of the day, and once the doors were locked, Nick and other library staff gathered their purses and keys to move on to the next phase of their day. Nick lingered for a few minutes now that it was getting dark. He hoped to make sure Ramona got to her car safely, and perhaps to help put her at ease. However, once he was ready to go and the rest of the building cleared, Nick saw Ramona in the same place as before, hunched at her desk over this strange book. What is it about this book? Why is she acting this way? Nick passed by Ramona and asked, "Walk you out?" Ramona was very absent-minded and replied, "No, I'm not ready yet." "You want me to wait with you?" Ramona irritatedly replied, "Just go!" With his head down, Nick said nothing else and headed for the door. Ramona continued her research for hours. Exhausted and frustrated, she laid her head down on her desk. It was 2:15 when suddenly she awoke. She thought she heard a voice, but wasn't quite sure. She looked still for a moment in case she heard the voice again. She was completely surrounded by darkness. Right as she began to stand, she heard it again. It sounded vaguely like someone saying, "Agatha?" She felt the chill of the building absent of people, and she wondered if she was alone or if something or someone was watching her right now. Chills filled her arms through her favorite brown cardigan, and she wanted to get out and get out fast. Agatha. "Hello?" Ramona called. "Is someone here? I'm not alone." Ramona packed up some papers as quickly as possible, noticing one of the pages had some weird writings and it's similar to the script in the book. Shuffling everything into a book bag, she bolted for the door to get to the back loading dock before where she once stood, and she had to go through a maze of dark cubicles where staff worked behind the scenes. Pitch dark. All Ramona could see was the red exit sign over the back door. Without any prompting, just the fear of something in the building with her, she started to run to the exit sign. She knew she would only feel safe when she saw the lights in the parking lot, and once she was about halfway to the door, she heard, "Ah!" Screamed into her ear as if someone was right next to her. Overcome with fear, she fell face first to the floor directly in front of the door with the red exit sign hanging above. Overcome with darkness, Ramona never saw the safety of the streetlights. The next morning, staff bustled in, as usual, past the back door and unobstructedly to their desks. Nick walked in a couple of minutes after, wondering if Ramona would be remorseful about the way she acted the day before. He immediately saw Ramona sitting at one of the cubicles in the staff area, the same as yesterday, with a brown cardigan and a very disheveled bun in her hair. Only today, she was holding the book up against her, instead of hunched over it, and she seemed to be staring out into empty space. Did she stay here all night? Nick thought. "Good morning, Ramona," he called, but Ramona didn't move her eyes. "Hey, are you all right?" he attempted again. Nothing. And Nick walked toward the other staff at the circulation desk who were busy turning on computers, shelving books, and getting books from the overnight book drop. "Has anyone noticed Ramona this morning?" Nick interrupted. A passive no came from all directions, and Nick then approached another library assistant and said, I think, there's something wrong with Ramona. I don't think she left the library last night." Shrugging their shoulders, they continued to work, almost non-responsive, like Ramona. "Does anyone not notice something weird is happening?" he thought. It wasn't long after the doors opened. The library was alive again with people needing books or to use computers. The day progressed, but it was busier than usual. Nick wanted to go see where Ramona was, and she wasn't at her usual spot at the front desk. But person after person kept needing help, and finally, as the day ended and the doors were locked, Nick went to find Ramona. Determined he was going to get to the bottom of what was going on, the lights all dark and the building cleared out, Nick began to look in every nook and cranny of the building. Suddenly, he passed the genealogy room and saw someone moving about. When he went into the dark room, he could make out Ramona with her very disheveled, almost undone bun, kneeling on the floor. "Ramona?" he questioned. What was she doing on the floor? He walked slowly but closer to her. "Ramona?" he repeated, and suddenly Ramona jerked her head towards him with a mouth full of paper. She was kneeling over books, ripping out paper and eating it. "What in the world are you doing, Ramona?" With darkened eyes and a forceful tone, the woman said, "I'm not Ramona." Nick jumped back at the person who looked like Ramona, but was clearly not. "What is going on?" Nick shouted. Then right before Nick, Ramona emerged from the floor with shards of paper flying off of her. and stood taller than any person on staff at the library, cowering to this giant woman who no longer resembled his friend in those foreboding eyes. Ramona stood over Nick and pronounced, Agatha! Nick, frightened, turned to run and escape this wicked thing. He bolts toward the back door, sensing the demon behind him. Anxious with the fear of being captured, he runs as fast as he can past the front desks and towards the staff cubicles. Turning the corner towards the back door with the red exit sign, Nick suddenly sees the ceiling tiles beginning to move, and just then one slides open and jumps down Agatha right at the door before the exit. Nick stops before her in the pitch dark, nothing but the red exit sign to illuminate the shadow of her figure. The next morning went remarkably like the morning before. Staff bustled in and began their day, none the wiser or concerned over the now missing library assistant, Nick. Instead, they continued bewitched, the same as Ramona, trapped inside Agatha. No longer the monster towering over people, Agatha transformed back into Ramona. Library doors are accustomed to people coming in and out each day, that the moment Alex walked in, he found the library to be a solace. He spent much of his life in this library for school, reading, and research, and was excited to be the newly hired library aide. It took him by surprise that they were actually hiring, and even more surprised once being hired. He saw himself working his way up and making a permanent place for him there. On his first day, he really wanted to make a name for himself and go every extra mile. Upon entering the library, Alex went to the place almost everyone immediately goes to when coming inside, the front desk. There he met several staff, all seemingly distracted with things to do. About 6 people, all bustling and none even looking up. He joined the supervisor to begin his training and learn the ropes. And one of the first people to come up to the desk during Alex's training was a person returning an interlibrary loan. Alex used this service a lot, where people could request items from other libraries. Alex turned to the robot-like supervisor and asked where the returned ILLs went. They told him to go to the back staff cubicles and look for Ramona. Independently, he set off for the cubicles in the back office. He asked the first person he saw sitting, "Where is Ramona?" They pointed straight to the back corner cubicle, and eagerly Alex set off and approached a desk with the nameplate of Ramona. No one was at the desk, so he decided to leave the book on her desk. As he was setting the book down, he noticed a very old and tattered maroon book. Curious to know what it was, he picked it up and opened it. He thought, this isn't English. "Put that down!" Someone snapped behind him. Startled, Alex looked behind him to see who he presumed to be Ramona, and she was wearing a very disheveled bun in her hair and a brown cardigan. I'm sorry, I was just curious about what book this was," Alex replied. "It's not yours, and never touch it again," said Agatha. Alex gave a slight nod and headed back to his post at the front desk. Back on desk, Alex couldn't help but to think working at a library was very different than what he imagined. He had worked a handful of restaurant and retail jobs until he finished college, but never worked in a library before. Unlike several of his friends, he never quite knew what he wanted to be when he grew up, only that he loved reading and wanted to cultivate that love in others. Is it normal for libraries to be unsocial, reserved, almost rude? He had been so excited when he got the job that he wasn't so ready to give up so fast. He remembered that the people always seemed nice at the library. Maybe today was just a bad day. Emerging from his thoughts, Alex looks up to see a patron in front of him. A sweet older woman with thick sunglasses on her eyes was peering past him. Alex enthusiastically says, "Hello, can I help you?" The woman looks down and says, "Oh, you must be new. I'm Merida. You all should have some holds for me." Alex took a moment to remember where his trainer told him the holds were. I'll be right back," said Alex. He meandered back to the staff cubicle area and grabbed Merida's books on hold from the shelf. He caught a glimpse of Ramona sitting at her desk, and she glared back at him. And Alex looked down and saw one of the books Merida had on hold was titled The Compassionate Medium. The braille raised dots just below the title. He gets back to his desk and asks Merida for her library card, which of course she already had waiting. "Thank you," Alex said while taking the card. He scanned the card and then each of her 3 books on hold, and as the receipt printed out, Alex asked Merida if she needed any more help. "No, but thank you," said Merida. "Welcome to the library. Being new can be tough, but I got a good feeling about you." Alex really needed to hear that. It had been such a weird day and didn't necessarily feel welcomed in his new position. And by the end of the day, his brain was numb. As the doors closed and everyone headed out, he was all too happy to be finally getting out of the building. As he walked to the back door past the staff cubicles, he glanced over at Ramona's desk. She wasn't there, but he did notice the ceiling tile above her desk as open. Was that like that before? He thought. Unsure, he kept walking and headed out the door to go home. The next day, Alex readied and was excited about the fresh start that comes with a new day. "Today will be better, and don't mess with anyone's desk, Alex," he thought. Back at the library, Alex continued with his training to greet patron after patron. It was a somewhat busy day, but the staff still seemed stiff, distracted, and almost in their own bubble. Where is the personality? Half the fun working somewhere is the co-workers. After lunch, it slowed a bit and Merida was back. With her walking stick, she guided herself right up to Alex. "Back so soon?" Alex exclaimed. "Oh, good, it is you," said Merida. "I was afraid I'd be stuck with one of those drones." "So, I'm not the only one. Whew, I was beginning to think I was going crazy," he said. "I need more holds, please," as Merida handed him the 3 books from the day before. "Done so soon?" said Alex. "I'm impressed." "Oh, yes, I find reading to be my favorite thing in the world. You see me here every day, darling," said Merida. "I'm glad. You're just about the only nice person in this whole building at times. Before I got my job here, I used to come here all the time, but I guess I never noticed how cold the staff could be." "Unfortunately, that is a recent development." "Why? What happened?" "Shh, not here, darling. You have my number in your computer. Give me a call later so I can be more frank," replied Merida. Alex affirmed and went to retrieve her new holds and put her returns on a cart waiting to be shelved. "What is your name, dear boy?" she asked. "Alex," he replied. "Well, Alex, do give me a call. I think we can help each other out." "Okay, sure thing." Juxtaposed to the morning, time now crawled in the afternoon, and Alex wondered what Merida would say. He recalled the book she checked out the day before and wondered if she was some kind of psychic. "I've never met a psychic before," he thought. What did she mean that this is all recent? What is this? When the day was finally done and Alex made it to his car, he pulled his cell out of his pocket and called Merida's number that he had on an old card catalog card he used for scrap paper. "Hello?" Merida answered on the other end. "Hey, Merida, it's me, Alex." "Oh, thank you for calling me. Are you home?" "No, I'm actually still at the library in the parking lot." "Good. We have work to do. Please come to my house to pick me up. We don't have any time to waste." Alex got her address and pulled his car on the main road to head towards her house. After picking Merida up at her small but quaint house, she instructed Alex to go back to the library. It was dark now, and not a car in the parking lot, and slowly Alex pulled into the spot he had parked in before he was talking to Merida on the phone. "Can you get inside?" asked Merida. "I can, but what are we doing here?" I am a medium, and I want to go inside the building to see what is going on with our library," Merida said. "You're a medium. What? Can you predict the future? Can you tell me what's going on?" "I can't predict the future. I'm not that kind of psychic, but I can channel spirits, and I think you have an evil spirit in your library." "I don't think I'm the right person for this. I have only been here for 2 days. Let's come back in the morning and ask one of the other staff members for help. This spirit doesn't seem to have a hold on you for whatever reason, but the rest of the building seems to be stuck under its spell. I need you to be my eyes. Help me figure out what is going on." Alex took a deep breath, and suddenly he was signed up for more than he bargained for. He got out of the car and shuffled in his trunk until he found his lug nut wrench. Merida got out of the car too and asked him what he was doing. "I would feel better if we had some kind of weapon. Channeling spirits isn't something I tend to do often." "I don't think that will help if we are working with a demon here." "Okay, but what will protect us from the demon?" "This." And reluctantly, Alex and Merida head to the back loading dock door, and yesterday Alex was filled with excitement to head into this building, and now he was terrified at the mere sight of it. "What have I gotten myself into?" he thinks. They get the door open, and all they see is darkness. Unable to find a switch, Alex says, "It looks like we are in the dark. I think that the lights might be on a timer." I don't know any other way," Merida says with a smile. "Right." So he reaches into his pocket again and grabs his cell with the flashlight feature on it. The LED light illuminates the staff cubicles eerily. "Where are we going?" "I need some space on the floor so I can sit up." "Set up what?" "I'm going to do a seance, see if we can draw this spirit out." Alex takes Merida to the center of the library where the front desk is, and there is a big open center for her to lay things out on the floor. Merida starts to pull out candles and place them on the floor in a circle. "Spirits take up a lot of atmosphere. If we have a spirit here tonight, we will notice them by the flicker of the candlelight, or if one blows out, I will be able to smell it burn out. Tell me, is there anything particularly odd that happened over the last 2 days that stand out to you?" I had this strange encounter with this lady who works here named Ramona. She seemed really rude and sketchy when I went to her desk." "I know Ramona. She was rude to you? That is very unlike her. This information could help when I try to channel the spirit. I'll see if she is the demon." "Much of the channeling I do is in a meditative state. You won't hear from me, and that is normal. And call out if you see anything, so something happens to the candles." Alex confirms and stares nervously at the candles. Merida takes a deep breath and closes her eyes, and typically when Merida is channeling spirits, she begins by envisioning blackness. It is dark, and then people or objects begin to illuminate. At first there is nothing, just the dark. In her mind, she begins to call out, "Hello, is anyone here?" Nothing. Merida continues to search when suddenly she sees a library. But it is not the library she is at now. It is a smaller one, but someplace colder and darker than the sunny East Texas. Alex notices Merida's eyes are moving and the candle flames are completely still. Merida goes closer to the library and sees two men talking off to the side of the building. She begins to approach them, but they look nervous. Both men appear to be in police uniforms, and one officer says to the other, I've never seen so many books without words. It's like the words all disappeared and the staff, what happened to the people? And the other cop explains, I've never seen so many people dead before, and in such a way. There's one missing, though, a woman. We need to find her. You sure she wasn't in there? We have everyone's belongings accounted for, but hers. Agatha something was her name. We need to get down to the station and put out an alert. She's either very dangerous or in danger herself. Agatha, Merida whispered. The candles all began to flicker rapidly and frantically. Alex looks at the flames and then hears something in the ceiling above him. Scared, he calls for Merida. Merida, something is going on. What's happening? He calls. Merida opens her eyes and says, this has happened in other places before. I think Ramona is the key. They hear a loud crashing noise in the dark back corner of the library. Alex goes to help Merida up. I think she's here, Alex says. Ramona, are you there? Suddenly they hear something in the distance. It sounds like it's coming from the genealogy room. Cautiously, they start walking to the room. Looking inside, they see a figure on the floor. Books are scattered everywhere, but none of the pages have words. They look at the figure in the shape of a woman. Alex flashes his cell flashlight at her and sees large, dark, wicked eyes and a huge mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. Alex immediately makes out the brown cardigan and brown stringy hair that was once in a bun. It's her, Alex calls, her razor-sharp teeth chewing on paper and microfilm. What on earth is she doing eating the books? Merida, we gotta go. I need to get you out of here. Alex begins to quickly guide Merida back. Agatha's eyes fixate on Merida and Alex. She jumps high into the ceiling tiles. Merida, we need to get the hell out of here now. Alex persists, grabbing Merida's elbow. Wait, we have to stop her. She will just keep going. She's destroying all the books, everything, Merida exclaims. No, we have to get help. I don't know how to fight this, says Alex. Take me back to the circle, Alex. Quickly, Alex guides Merida back to the candles, which are rapidly dancing along with the beating of their hearts. Merida goes to sit back down and hears Agatha fall from the ceiling right in front of her and Alex. Suddenly, the body of Agatha begins to transform. Her skin sheds and a creature begins to emerge from her pooled skin. Alex stumbles backwards and knocks over a candle. The carpet below catches fire and begins to spread, but Alex doesn't notice. His adrenaline is pumping so fast, all he can focus on is the beast in front of him. The demon notices the fire heading towards the cubicles and begins to scream in anger. It looks towards the cubicles. Of course, the book, Merida calls. What book? The other day when Ramona was acting weird, it was over this book on her desk. The book is the key. We need that book, Alex. We have to destroy it. Get that book. But how? That thing will get to it before me. Take me. I will distract it while you get the book and throw it in the fire. Take my hand. Alex grabs Merida's hand and they head back to the desk towards the staff cubicles. As soon as they get to the cubicles, they see Agatha stomping towards the book. Alex instantly grabs some books off a cart and hurls each one at it. Then Alex ducks down into the dark and starts crawling on the floor, and Merida begins to call to Agatha. Right here! Come and get me! She shouts. Agatha begins to backtrack towards Merida, almost hissing in her anger. and Alex finally reaches Ramona's cubicle and grabs the book. As soon as Alex touches the book, Agatha senses it and screams with anger. Her body stops, and now all her focus is on Alex. In this moment, he sees the fire has spread to the cubicle area and the opposite area of the room. If he runs fast, he can get to the end before Agatha gets to him. Before he could hesitate any longer, Alex bolts to the other side of the room. Agatha runs toward him, flipping over cubicles, trying her best to get to him quickly, but her size is a disadvantage. Right then, Merida is suddenly transported back to the police officers talking outside of the library. They are still talking about the missing woman, Agatha. Do you think this happened, Do you think she was kidnapped? Is there any evidence that she's taken and not the suspect? Hard to tell. I'm still not sure. She's the one of the sacrifices inside. Sacrifice? Merida puzzles. Alex reaches the fire and hurls the book inside. Agatha screams in anguish, but Alex notices the book isn't burning yet. What's going on? The book won't burn. How else can we destroy it? Merida realizes that the demon seeks a sacrifice. We have to replace evil with good. We need a sacrifice. Agatha redirects her attention to Merida. If Merida keeps figuring things out, it knows they will destroy everything. Alex sees Agatha charging back to Merida. No, wait! He hollers towards Agatha. Leave her alone! Without thinking much about it at all, Alex dives into the flames after the book. At this time, the ceiling caves in and Alex is stuck beneath the rubble. Agatha continues towards Merida. Suddenly, her razor-sharp teeth elongate with her mouth. It's going to swallow her whole. Just as Agatha absorbs Merida into its body, the fire reaches the electrical panel and the whole building begins to explode. Flames have erupted everywhere, fire engines surrounding the building, and not an entrance or window is void of flames. Suddenly, one hears what they think is someone laughing. Must have been the water evaporating in the fire, causing a high-pitched noise, but it's Agatha laughing maniacally as she is completely overcome with flames. The next morning, the sepia-colored brick building is now coal black with ruin. Everything is gone and all is destroyed. The firemen recover the body of Alex, but no one else. The results of their investigation is a candle fire. Even with the results in, the question of what happened there lingered in everyone's minds. Snow began to dance along the busy streets and sidewalks leading to the tube that morning. Hundreds of commuters entered and exited the train, all bundled for the first snow of the year. It's not a good sign to get snow in October, one train patron said to the other, both holding onto poles as they stood amongst the cramped train car. I think we got snow in October during '79, the other patron said. I'm just going to spend this winter in my flat with a cup of tea. Nonsense being in this mess. The intercom dings and alerts. St. James Square, London Library. Herds of people slowly unloaded and embarked up packed escalators to the surface. Amongst the crowd was a woman with a thick brown wool coat and Mary Jane heels, clanking on the concrete subfloor. On the street level, she passed a sign saying, Sweet Bakes Manchester, where confections and yeast filled the air. Passing the bakery, the woman found solace inside the London Library. Immediately upon entering, the warmth took away the chill off her legs and face. The heels continued to subtly clack on the wooden floor below as she moved towards the circulation desk. At the desk, a friendly staff member greeted the lady and said, Hello, how can I help you? I just moved here and I'm needing to get my library card, said the woman. Oh, absolutely. May I have your name, please, dear? Said the librarian. Ramona, like the Beverly Cleary character, replied the woman. Oh, what a wonderful American series. I do hope you will find many more classic stories here, said the librarian. I'm sure I will. In fact, I plan to take the whole library. Hey everyone, thanks for joining in and watching the Virtual Tales of Terror. That story was The Peculiar Book of the Infernal Librarian, read by Carla Halleck. She did such a great job. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
That was a prelude to our Adult Ghost Stories program that's going to start next week, the 19th through the 25th. Go to our Facebook for more information, and thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you.